Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Lunch Table Podcast with Dylan and Akram. For this episode, we are reviewing episode 4 of season 4 of Succession, now on HBO Max. Be sure to check out our other Succession reviews. We have 3 out already. So, Akram, going into episode 4, the aftermath of, spoiler alert, Logan's death. How did you receive this episode?
I thought this episode was still very tense, but also very intimate. And I think that there's a lot at play here, and there's like this type of energy in the room, right? And everybody has their own game that they want to play, and yeah, it's gonna get really dicey later on. Good news for some characters too, I guess. But let's get right into it.
Yeah, well, Shiv said it best. This is an event where it's sad for some people, but it's a coronation for others, right? Like you said, people are still playing each other. It's still a drama about, people trying to make moves, make plays, get power, right? As The Rock said, it's all about power. But yeah, so the last episode, it's a nice contrast because we had so much grief and so much sadness in the last episode, and here it feels like they just kind of went back to their old ways, right? They're like shitting on their dad, like they're reading the newspapers. Right. But it's a nice commentary. It's like people only see the surface, right? Unless you're like in that family, you don't really know like the true Logan Roy, right? So I thought it was so funny when like that one guy was like make a speech about like, oh, he's like a titan of the conservative movement or whatever, but like they're all commenting like, yeah, this is cap, this is bullshit.
Well, yeah, and I also enjoy seeing how these characters cope with things, and I also enjoy seeing how business is business, and this is the world that they live in, and they have to cope in their own way, and they're it's very funny how they kind of deal with this tragic loss, and I guess in a way Logan kind of made them more stronger because they're all about the money, all about the hierarchy and the succession, if you will. So I found that it was really cool, but they're all also like Logan's brother said, vipers. Right. So I think now we're seeing this at play, because the first time when Logan's brother was in the apartment and he came back to get his stick, he says, "You're all liars, like vipers." And I think we're seeing this at play right now. It's like a bush nest. And so, yeah.
They're truly Roy children, right? Like it only took a day for them to really like get back to their old ways, right?
Yeah.
So in this episode, it is revealed that Logan left a unnotarized will of his inheritance, and we see that apparently he at one point had decided that Kendall would probably be the CEO,
right?
And it was found by Frank and the the Keystone fucks, right? Carl and Jerry. So I have a question. Why do you think they kind of told the siblings about the... I have a theory, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Why they told the siblings?
About the letter.
I think it was like... I think there's still a respect, because no matter what happens, there was a scene with Carrie dropping this bag. We'll talk a little bit about it later, but Roman is very worried, but he always talks shit, and no matter what, the siblings, they protect each other if something really bad happens. So in a sense, that's when it feels very real, because it's like, okay, we're joking around, but hey, don't you fucking touch my kids. Hey, don't you touch my brother. So I feel like for these characters, there's still a respect, and they have to acknowledge that. So that's most likely why they said it. One question now, to bring it back to you, I have a question for you. Why did Logan not notarize this letter? This is really strange. I wonder why he didn't bring this to his legal team.
I mean, like Frank said, he was a man of many moods, right? He could pick Roman one day, Shiv the next day, and then Kendall on Friday, right? I think really he was trying to get a feel for who was best qualified. I think at the end of the day, Logan was kind of like a Palpatine character. Like he only saw himself as, kind of like the king, right? He couldn't see anybody else really taking over, right? Maybe and that's the thing, we don't even know. I think they said it was like an undated letter. So this could have been like years ago, right? Maybe perhaps like when they were like probably like college kids or whatever. Maybe he decided at one point that Kendall was like the most mature, because Connor was kind of like, yeah. So it was like Kendall was like the second eldest. But as we see the show progress, it's like, well, now we're not sure because his mindset was like kind of off too. And I was thinking, like, the reason I asked you that question too was I was thinking, like, what if this is like the lieutenant's way of kind of dividing the kids? Because at one point, Frank and Carl were debating. They were joking around, like, "Oh, what if this like fell in the toilet or some shit, right?" Because they could have easily like burned. Like nobody knew about this, right? Only them. So I was thinking, like, what if they did this to separate the kids, right? Because now they're gonna be vying for power. We already kind of see it in this episode. They're like kind of like debating who is really like the worthy successor, right? They're kind of like fighting amongst themselves. And like up until this point, they were kind of like unified. I mean, it was kind of like a thin like line of an alliance, but they were still kind of like unified in their hate for Logan. But now I'm thinking like this introduction, this letter kind of like divides them in a way.
Well, for sure it did. I think in an ideal world, or if I were writing the show and I had the opportunity to provide a flashback, what I would have done was during the Kendall escapades and when he was going at Waystar, he was going for him. I would like to think that Logan had this letter for about a couple of years, and then when that happened, when Kendall said that this is my dad, and he's grinned, I was like, oh, you do have a killer in you. I would like to think that he went back to his apartment and he looked at that letter, because that letter was very sentimental in a way. That's why he didn't get it in legal. And also because he couldn't really trust his kids, because in the same time too, Logan is back and forth on a lot of things. His kids are too, in a way. They live like a very strange and inconsistent type of lives, or they do drugs, this and that. So I would like to think that maybe when Kendall did that, he kind of had this respect that, okay, it's good. He underlined it, but at the end of the day, still Logan is a killer. And so there was a really interesting conversation Kendall and Logan had. I don't know if you remember when they were in Italy and they sat down. And Brian Cox said this in the last episode in the podcast. He said a lot of people misinterpret the scene where Logan thinks Kendall's trying to poison him, right? And but that's not the case. That's not the case. The case was that Kendall told the waiter that he was holding the mozzarella cheese. He told the waiter, that's his, right? To switch. But he did that on purpose as like a play, just to psychologically mess with Logan, right? But Logan caught on to that. Logan wouldn't really actually get his grandchild to eat poison, but he did that. It's basically like a fuck you to Kendall. Right. Like, I'm going to play at your game. So in a way, there's this weird respect, and yet there's still like this immaturity aspect of it, where there's a lot at stake, yet they still play this game just to get back at each other. And so there's that side, and there's the business side, which I think co-aligns with, again, when Roman, Siobhan, Kendall, or even Carrie, something bad happens to them, somebody will actually speak up and say, hey, that's not right. Hey, you can't do that, So right. I think it's a very delicate balance that they play with these notions. But that's why we're so attracted to Succession, because it's something super unique. We don't really see something that invisible yet that prevalent.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the siblings, well, they probably got this from Logan, but they always tend to use like humor as like a mechanism, like a defense mechanism, because they can't really talk about their feelings to each other, because they grew up like, you have to be like very thick-skinned in this kind of world, right? But over the course, it's like they kind of, like you said, they kind of have this respect, right? I think it's like kind of like a brother-sister thing, where like they don't want anyone else to kind of like shit talk their dad but them. Because Hugo and Carolina were even talking to Roman and Kendall, and like, well, we have a plan where like we could shit on your dad basically, and that'll make you look good and make it seem like you were like masterminding this whole time. But they're like, well, this is still, no matter what we thought of our dad, this is still kind of like his funeral, and we want to pay respect to him. So it's like we don't want to go like fully through with that, right? Like, yeah, we want to, change ATN, and, whatever you want to say about Logan, he was pretty much a mean old bastard, but he's still our dad, right? And even Shaban was kind of like stop smiling, right? Everybody, it's not a fucking comedy club. They kind of did her dirty though. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
The whole episode, really, because actually I was kind of glad though, because like you're talking a little too much shit. Because she was telling, I get it, but she was telling the other people to like stop laughing, and then she trips. Remember?
Right.
I feel like that's symbolic though, kind of like a fall from grace, even if she has fell from grace already in the past. But it's
Or
like
she's slipping.
yeah, she's slipping. That's what it is. Yeah, they did do her dirty here. Talk about that though. How?
Well, firstly, I want to mention we didn't even talk about the beginning where everybody's like kind of coping with, you know, their loss and everything.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they said it was in the commentary too. It was kind of like weird going back to like normality, like doing your laundry or whatever after like your father's died.
Yeah.
But then we get this scene with Shiv, and she's getting a call from, I think, like a CAT scan or a doctor, whatever. And apparently, like, it's implied that she might be pregnant. I was like, oh, fuck, that's a way to start an episode.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, in a weird way, like symbolic. It's like the death of one Roy is like the birth of another, in a way.
Right. I made a prediction that Carrie was going to be pregnant. I wonder. I'm honestly confused because also, when did she get pregnant?
That's the thing. She slept around so much. Like, we don't even know it's Tom's.
We need to bring her to Maury. That's what we need to bring her to.
Jerry, where Jerry at? Well, yeah, that's true. It could be like the dude that was working for that politician. I forgot his name.
Him or the actor guy. But
right, or that, yeah.
But I feel like they said in this season it's the day, it's like day 1, day 2, day 3. It's like how the episodes are kind of aligned compared to the other ones. Yeah. So I'm not too sure. And the way how they like talk to her, I wonder if it's actually that she's not pregnant. I wonder if it's just a different illness or something like that. But I don't know why they would say everything looks fine. Like, I don't understand. I really don't.
I thought it was either two things. It was either she was pregnant or they found like some kind of like tumor or some shit. More likely the former.
Probably, yeah.
Well, also, do you think Carrie may be pregnant too? Because we had that really kind of scene you mentioned where she was at the apartment and she was trying to get her things, but Marsha was also there and she kind of like blocked her off. And it looked like she had like a bunch of like medications or shit on the floor. So I was like thinking, is that like birth control pills or something?
Well, I think if she was pregnant, they would probably throw in some type of foreshadowing or like some object. So she probably like, I don't know, a birth test. What is a pregnancy test in the bag? I think it was just that scene was sort of like Marsha. You know, she cares about Logan, but in a way,
dominance.
She's a certain dominance. And when Carrie dropped the bag and it showed all the pills and stuff, I think it was just like to showcase that, she took care of Logan with the medicine and stuff like that. And she was like really,
she was an affair.
Loyal.
That's all she was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised we actually didn't see Caroline or Ewan in this episode.
Yeah. They're probably going to show up in a board meeting because that's the thing coming up next. The board meeting. I mean, that's still surprising though, that unless Logan's brother is waiting for Greg to pick him up, but he's still like waiting outside his house. But I mean, we'll probably see him in a board meeting thing. I mean, and also, I want to talk to you about a little bit more about who's going to take over the business, because it was discussed, which I kind of like how Kendall's playing it. It's like, I want to be fair. You know, it's written down on this letter, but I want to be fair with you guys. You know, we could partner up, whatever. It's really interesting how they shoved Siobhan like to the side. It makes sense. It's strategic. She doesn't have much experience, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, firstly, I think it's so interesting that everybody's trying to interpret this letter because his name is like crossed out, but it looks like it could be underlined. So I think you made a good point. Like, you know, it would have been great to see like a flashback scene where like Logan, it would have been interesting to see like Logan, maybe he was like constantly annotating this letter as the season progressed. Maybe he saw like, you know, flaws in one child and then strengths in the other, and he could have been like constantly editing it with different names, even like he put it like Jerry or Frank in that letter too. So it seems like Kendall now is kind of taking the reins, I guess. It's like, I don't know, it's weird because like he has a good thing going right now with Pierce and the Gojo deal. But maybe that's the point. It's like once you see an opportunity, it's like it seeps in the back of your mind, and it's like no matter how good you are, like you have to take that chance, right? That's how I see it. Maybe he's finally becoming the killer that his dad wanted him to be, because he kind of talked about that in this episode. He was like, "Do you think?" He was asking Frank, like, "Do you think Dad was like disappointed in me or whatever?" So maybe this is kind of like his way of like saying like, "Fuck you, Dad. Like I can do better than you. Like taking over your company, right?"
For sure, yeah. And at the same time, I think one complex issue is that Kendall, I think he also feels guilt, right? He's ridden with guilt with, the guy the guy that died in that wedding night.
To arrest and coup over the course of 3 seasons.
Well, that too, yeah. It's like he feels guilty because like all this time it was him. So now he wants to take the chance. Like he doesn't want to let it go. And so now instead of being driven by ambition, right? Because you have a silver spoon, so it's kind of easy to make moves. But when you're like that, it's kind of hard to get that ambition. But I feel like now his driving factor will be the guilt. And it's to show everybody who he actually is, that he's the boss. Because again, it was season 1 was like Kendall is just some business guy just trying to be the best. Maybe he's going to be the successor. Season 2 was kissing Logan's ass because of the blackmail. Season 3 was Kendall unbound. And this one seems like he is the predecessor to Logan Roy. I don't know if I word that correct. Yeah. The true heir. Yeah. Now it's like, okay, you guys are going to be fucked now. Now I'm the guy, right?
I'm not just some cokehead anymore. It's like I'm actually like respect a Roy, me, right? Yeah. Yeah. God, this season's so good.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen with the other siblings, like Roman and Shiv? Do you think they're going to backstab them? I'm sure they are. They seems like they have their own kind of agendas for what they want to see in the new ATN, right?
I think we need a scene we need like an episode that gives us the revenge that we want for when Roman knocked over Kendall in, I think, season 3 in that party. I think we need to see, the other side where it's like Kendall now is the one who's going to be pushing. We might see that because, it's Roman and Kendall, but between brothers, there's always like, I'm the bigger brother and I need this, right? I deserve this. And in a way, it's like no one really respects Kendall. Roman has his sexual problems or whatnot, and you could keep on riffing on that, but for the most part, Roman is a pretty sound successor. He's kind of like his father, except he's just a little weirder. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Shiv, I don't think that's in the cards for her, to be honest. I think she thinks that she's big shit, but she isn't really, right?
Well, but she has too much beef with the president-elect that they wanted.
Yeah. Kendall's like the true, I think, the real businessman, actually. It's just he doesn't know how to shine, right? Because he's so drugged up sometimes and so depressed and this and that and went through so much shit. But sometimes the people, it's like a quote from The Last of Us, from weakness may we grow our true strength. And I feel like that's Kendall at this moment, and this season probably we'll see that. Because the gloves are off too. So
yeah, and it's like it's interesting now because like for the most part, Kendall kind of did whatever his dad wanted him to do. So it's weird seeing him now make his own choices, right?
Or like, what would Dad do? Maybe he's thinking that.
Right, exactly. No. Yeah, and those are big shoes to fill, right? Does he have it in? I mean, he kind of does have it in him. I mean, look what he did to Walter. I mean, as fucked as that situation is, but that was because he was blackmailed, right? Now it's like you said, the gloves are off. He doesn't have this big shadow over him, right? Now he is the shadow in a way. So I wonder, like, how his choices redefine him in this season.
Oh, yeah. And I always like to think of the siblings as different elements to Logan himself. They all shine in some aspect, but I think now that Logan is gone, Daddy's not here to protect them, right?
Exactly.
So they're going to have to do their best to run this business, but they're by themselves. And I don't think Carl, I don't think, I was going to say Jarl by accident. I don't think Frank, I don't think other people will really help them out in this sense because now they're steering. But that's why I really believe now, like, Kendall is going to be the antagonist to Roman. Siobhan is kind of out of the picture, and I think she's going to be too busy dealing with her own mess. But we did see some previews that she's going to have a conversation with Matt. I was going to say Mads Mikkelsen now with Matsson. Right?
She was the Shadow Council in Mandalorian.
yeah. All this time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see like her and Matsson having kind of like this side deal where maybe she gets more power over the brothers.
Right.
Tom, I'm not sure, but I don't know where he stands because he was kind of like in this episode, kind of like Roman said, he was kind of like ass kissing like everybody. He's there to serve, right?
Right. Well, that's the point. I think this episode really showcased like his intentions this time.
Right.
Like this is it right here. I'm just here to serve whoever. Please don't screw me over. And even you saw what's his name, Hugo. Hugo asked Kendall, like, if you got me, basically, everybody knows what's going to happen. Everybody knows now that one of these guys are going to take over. Please don't screw me over.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what's going to happen now.
Sure.
Big shoes to fill. But yeah, guys, that is our review for episode 4 of Succession season 4. Like I said, check out our episodes 1 to 3 reviews if you haven't already. Check out our other reviews. We have so much content. We are so busy this month, and oh my god, this year has been so chock full of movies, reviews, and plenty of content we've covered. We're still planning to get a couple guests on this podcast, so please be patient. But yeah, check out our other YouTube shorts if you haven't, clips from our podcast. Check out our socials, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to our podcast from. But yeah, thank you guys so much, and until then, thanks for having lunch with us.
And thanks to our new subscribers and all. Fuck off, and I'll see you guys.
Fuck off, but don't actually fuck off.
Yeah, stay.